Gospel of Matthew chapter 14, verses 1 to 36, reflections after the verses. The death of John the Baptist. Verse 1. At that time, Herod the Tetrarch heard of the fame of Jesus. Verse 2. And he said to his servants, This is John the Baptist, he is risen from the dead, and therefore these mighty works are done by him. Verse 3. For Herod had arrested John, bound him, and put him in prison because of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife. Verse 4. John had told Herod, It is not lawful for you to have her. Verse 5. Although Herod wanted to put him to death, he feared the people, because they considered John a prophet. Verse 6. But when Herod's birthday was celebrated, the daughter of Herodias danced before them and pleased Herod. Verse 7. So he promised with an oath to give her whatever she asked. Verse 8. Being instructed by her mother, she said, Give me here the head of John the Baptist on a platter. Verse 9. The king was grieved, but because of his oath and those who sat with him at the table, he commanded it to be given to her. Verse 10. So he sent and had John beheaded in prison. Verse 11. His head was brought on a platter and given to the girl, and she brought it to her mother. Verse 12. Then his disciples came, took the body, and buried it. Then they went and told Jesus. Jesus feeds the 5,000. Verse 13. When Jesus heard of it, he departed from there by boat to a deserted place alone. But when the people heard about it, they followed him on foot from the cities. Verse 14. When Jesus went out and saw a great crowd, he was moved with compassion for them and healed their sick. Verse 15. As evening came, his disciples approached him and said, This is a remote place, and the hour is late. Send the crowds away so they may go into the villages and buy food for themselves. Verse 16. But Jesus said to them, They do not need to leave, you give them something to eat. Verse 17. They said to him, We have only 5 loaves and 2 fish. Verse 18. He said, Bring them here to me. Verse 19. Then he commanded the crowds to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven, blessed them, broke them, and gave them to the disciples, who distributed them to the people. Verse 20. They all ate and were satisfied, and they took up 12 baskets full of leftovers. Verse 21. About 5,000 men were fed, besides women and children. Jesus walks on water. Verse 22. Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, while he sent the crowds away. Verse 23. After he had sent them away, he went up on a mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. Verse 24. But the boat was now in the middle of the sea, tossed by the waves, for the wind was against them. Verse 25. In the 4th watch of the night, Jesus came to them, walking on the sea. Verse 26. When the disciples saw him walking on the water, they were troubled and said, It is a spirit. And they cried out in fear. Verse 27. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, Take courage. It is I, do not be afraid. Verse 28. Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. Verse 29. He said, Come. And when Peter stepped down from the boat, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. Verse 30. But when he saw the strong wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, Lord, save me. Verse 31. Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand, caught him, and said, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" Verse 32. When they got into the boat, the wind ceased. Verse 33. Then those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." Jesus heals many in Gennesaret. Verse 34. When they crossed over, they came to the land of Gennesaret. Verse 35. When the men of that place recognized him, they sent word throughout the entire region and brought to him all who were sick. Verse 36. They begged him to let them just touch the hem of his garment, and as many as touched it were made completely well. Reflections on Gospel of Matthew chapter 14, verses 1 to 36. Gospel of Matthew chapter 14 is a powerful chapter that highlights faith, fear, and the miraculous power of Jesus. It begins with the tragic execution of John the Baptist, followed by two of Jesus' most famous miracles, the feeding of the 5,000 and walking on water. Through these events, we see Jesus' deep compassion, his divine authority, and the importance of unwavering faith. 1. The death of John the Baptist, verses 1 to 12, standing for truth has a cost. John the Baptist was a fearless prophet who confronted King Herod's sinful relationship with Herodias. Even though Herod respected John, he gave in to pressure and had him beheaded to please his guests. Standing for righteousness often comes with opposition, but God honors those who remain faithful. Like John, we must be bold in speaking truth, even when it's unpopular. Earthly power is temporary, but God's kingdom is eternal. 2. Jesus feeds the 5,000, verses 13 to 21, God's provision in our lack. After John's death, Jesus withdrew to a quiet place, but crowds followed him. Instead of turning them away, he had compassion, healed their sick, and miraculously fed them with just 5 loaves and 2 fish. Jesus sees our needs and provides beyond what we can imagine. God can multiply what little we have when we surrender it to Him. True satisfaction comes not just from physical bread but from Jesus, the bread of life. 3. Jesus walks on water, verses 22 to 33, faith over fear. As the disciples struggled against strong winds in the middle of the sea, Jesus came to them walking on water. Peter, full of faith, stepped out onto the waves, but as soon as he focused on the storm, he began to sink. Jesus immediately rescued him, saying, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" Storms in life are inevitable, but Jesus is always near. When we fix our eyes on Jesus, we can do the impossible. When we focus on fear, we sink. Even in our doubt, Jesus is ready to reach out and save us. Worship is the natural response when we recognize Jesus' power and presence. 4. Jesus heals in Gennesaret, verses 34 to 36, the power of His touch. When Jesus arrived in Gennesaret, people brought their sick to Him, and all who touched the hem of His garment were healed. A single touch of faith can bring complete healing. Jesus welcomes all who seek Him, regardless of their past. His power is not limited, He is still healing and restoring lives today. Conclusion. Gospel of Matthew chapter 14 reminds us that Jesus is greater than fear, greater than lack, and greater than any storm we face. Whether we are grieving like Jesus, struggling in faith like Peter, or seeking healing like the crowds, Jesus is compassionate, powerful, and always near. Are you trusting Him fully today? Join us as we dive into God's Word and grow in His love and grace. Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment of encouragement.